Good afternoon. My name is FREDRIKSEN-GOLDSEN, and I'm pleased to be able to talk to you about the Global Pride, the Sexuality and Gender International Study. I am a professor at the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. And I'm pleased to be able to present here with my collaborators today. First of all, when we think about sexuality and gender in a global context, we have to think first about global aging. Worldwide, we know that more than 13%, or about 13%, of people across the globe are 60 years and older. And we know by 2030, at least 1 in 6 will be 60 or older. We also see more diversity by sexuality and by gender. Certainly in the US, as well as in other areas of the world that have been looking at sexuality and gender over time. Also, we have to consider the COVID-19 context, which certainly worldwide has affected all of our communities, with more than 519 million cases and more than 6 million deaths. But when we think about both sexuality and gender and global aging, we also have to think about both the stigma and the structural environments. More than 71 countries criminalized same-sex sexual activity, and more than 11 can and do impose the death penalty for same-sex intimacy. And that more than 15% criminalize gender identity and the expression of transgender people. But we know stigma exists and is expressed in many different forms. And we also know that the resilience of sexual and gender diverse people is astonishing, and that we also have to consider. So how did we end up developing the Global Pride study? Well, first of all, Aging with Pride in the United States, it was the first longitudinal study that was funded by the National Institutes of Health and the National Institute on Aging. And we're following more than 2,450 LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, and sexually and gender diverse people. We're following them, and they're between the ages of 50 and 102. This is across all US Census divisions. And that study is now funded in years 11 through 15. As principal investigator of Aging with Pride and HAS, many people around the globe were contacting me because they wanted to be able to have and mount a similar research project in their own host country. And so in 2017, we did a pre-conference at the World Congress. Another collaborator will talk more about this. But from that, it was an opportunity to meet many collaborators, and people wanted to extend the work. So we did a special issue. And again, another collaborator will talk more about that. So who are our collaborators? This Global Pride study would not be possible without collaborators across the globe. And it's really, I'm a collaborator, also we're all collaborators. We're working together to develop a very unique and distinct study on sexuality and gender, and look at the lives of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and other sexually and gender diverse people. We're across all world regions, including North America, South America, and South Asia, East Asia, Europe, Oceania. We're in both the Middle East and Africa and in MENA, but we're across the globe. And again, it's through all of these collaborators that make this work possible. Our study aims are really 3. First of all, to develop an international network. 2, to create a context and inventory. And 3, to pilot test a survey project. For the international network, we now have over 50 members. We share knowledge and experiences about sexuality and gender research across the globe. We've been looking at the impact of COVID-19, again, on these very diverse global communities. And we also look at the existing research, and we've identified the gaps. And together, we're moving this field forward. We also created an inventory, really being able to put this kind of research in context when we think about different global regions across the globe. So we've developed cultural and structural context templates, really, and that look and across geographic regions and within each country, and across languages, existing structures. And we also look at policies impacting sexual and gender diverse people. Next, we wanted to develop a survey and then be able to pilot test it. And again, thinking together, collaborating across communities, across countries, across the globe, to be able to develop a survey that would actually work across countries. So we're very involved in this development of data collection tools and really taking into consideration the different methodological considerations within cultures and context, thinking through about different languages, and also what is our reach, both to those that we can reach, perhaps through many different means, but also those harder to reach. At this point, we now have about 1,400 people who have participated. These are the preliminary demographics. Again, this is preliminary, and we're still in data collection stage. But we can see we have about 24% that are 50 and older. We also have good diversity by sexual identity, with about 40% gay, 22% lesbian, about almost 20% bisexual, 4% heterosexual, and about 15% sexual diverse. And by gender, we also have good diversity in terms of 39% women, 48% men, and 14% gender, non-binary, and gender diverse, and about 17% are transgender. Again, we're making sure that we're reaching out to ensure diversity across this sample. Next, you're going to have the opportunity to hear from some of the collaborators. First, Dr. Brian DeVries, who is the lead collaborator on this project, and also Martin WINZELER from Argentina, who will discuss some of the preliminary findings from Argentina from this study, and also TE-SHENG Chang from Taiwan, who will also discuss their findings from within Taiwan. And again, I would encourage you to contact us for more information. This is the address for our institute and for the Global Pride Study. Again, we're happy to answer any questions you have and give you more information. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my session. First of all, I'd like to give a big thank you to everyone for joining my session. As you know, this session is part of a symposium session. The title of the symposium is Global Pride, the Development of a Sexuality and Gender International Study and Research Network. And this symposium is led by Karen and Brian. Secondly, I'd like to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is FREDRIKSEN Chang, and recently I'm working at Department of Education and Human Potential Development, National Donghua University in Taiwan. I also like to introduce the second author of this paper. His name is Sandy Chang, and he is also worked in the same university, but from different department. It's called the Department of Tourism, Recreation, and Leisure Study. Let's talk about the background of my study. As you know, same-sex marriage in Taiwan became legal on 24th May 2019. It was 3 years ago. And this policy makes Taiwan become the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. However, some of the people still disagree with the same-sex marriage in Taiwan. Based on a survey by Gender Equality Committee of the Executive Yuan last year, 2021, the survey covered 1,080 people aged more than 20. And it shows 60% of the sample agree with the same-sex marriage. However, still 40% of them disagree. Since Taiwan is the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage, Sandy and I thought Taiwanese LGBT people voice need to be heard and shared with the international network. And in 2020, September, a great research collaboration invitation from Global Pride Study led by Professor Karen and Brian. Sandy and I were so excited about this invitation. So we joined this wonderful collaboration to do LGBT research and find out what the LGBT people in Taiwan voice and compare to our voice to the LGBT people in another country. Therefore, this research tends to share the state of the sexuality and the gender research in Taiwan, and also sharing our observation and evaluation of the development and the implementation of the survey and initial evaluation of the various data collection and outreach method we use. Let's talk about the data collection. Our team administrated an online survey between March and May 2022. The survey was translated from English to Chinese and distributed through Taiwanese LGBT social network page and group, such as Taiwan 同志 Hotline Association, Taiwan Feminist Scholar Association, Harmony Home Association, Taiwan Gender Equity Education Association, Taiwan LGBT Family Rights Advocacy. And also, respondents were recruited through online advertisement and an online-based survey. The online advertisement were posted on the main homepage of LGBT Association as the association I just mentioned earlier, and also posted on the homepage and the social network page of the specific institution of the partners involved in the project. Scaffolder and representatives of LGBT organizations were contacted directly by me and Sandy. And also we asked to share the survey with their network, activating a snowball sampling procedure. So the respondents were also recruited by electronic mail, professional mailing list from university and the community settings, such as Facebook, Messenger, and online. The most important thing is all the participation was voluntary and anonymous. Next, I'd like to share the preliminary result of this survey. The all participants so far we have is 337. And as you can see here, most of them age under 49, which is 99.3%. And most of them are gay. And some of them are bisexual. And we also have some transgender in the participant. Only 1% of the participants have COVID-19. And 2.3% of the participants have someone close die of COVID-19. And most of the participants received COVID-19 vaccine, which is 98.4%. About the social interaction, here you can see 7.3% of the participants indicate the quality of their relationship with people outside household is 7.3, getting better. However, 7.7% of the participants indicate the quality of a relationship with people outside household is worse. And 85% of them say asked about the same. Let's look at the quality of relationship with people in household. 13.5% of the participants say, well, getting better after COVID-19. And only 8% of them say, well, it's getting worse. And 78.5% say, well, it's about the same. And also I like to point out a very special number here is about the transgender. As you can see, the transgender people indicate their relationship with the in-household people getting better is 33.3% and also 22.7% indicate better with the outside hold. Let's look at the social support. The social support means the number of the people you can count on practical help. For example, like have someone to go grocery for you, to go, to take to go to the post office for you, okay? And as here you can see, 75.5% of the participants say, well, they have 2 or more people to help them with a practical help. Especially for the people who age 50, you can see a 92.3% say, well, they can have 2 or more people to help them with social interaction. And how often do you feel left out? Well, the number here indicate the 15.6% say, well, they fairly often or very often, right? And compared to 84.4% say, well, they never or sometimes they feel left out. But if you look at the number for elderly people, when I say elderly people is age more than 50, well, it's only 7.7% of the elderly people feel they fairly often or very often left out. But majority of the elderly people never or just sometimes feel left out. Let's look at about the negative events. According to the participant response on the negative event, you can see the percentage here are quite high. Verbally insulted, well, it's 52.5%. Friendship ended, we still have a 55.8% indicate their friendship ended during COVID-19. And the people die, people did things that devalue or humiliated me, well, which is 26.4%. And I was forced to try to be someone I'm not, which is 42.4%. And here I like to point out for transgender people, 63.6% transgender people say they were forced to be someone they are not. And also about unfriendly or hostile environment. 44.8% of participants have this feeling. About the serious thought about killing or harming themselves, in their lifetime, we still can see the high number. 57.7% of the participants have thought about killing or harm themselves. Especially if we look at the transgender or we look at the people with sexual diverse, the percentage are even much higher than the percentage of all the participants. And another question is about the theory thought about killing or harm themselves in the past 12 months. Here you can see the number of the participants is, it's still 39.7%. And for the transgender people, the percentage is 58.8%. And for people with sexual diverse, the percentage is 50%. The last output I like to share in this presentation is about resilience and the quality of their life. Okay, about resilience, I have two questions. The first question is, I tend to recover quickly after difficult time. And here you can see the number is 57.5. However, again, for the transgender people, the percentage is much higher, it's 80.9%. And the learning positive thing about myself during difficult time, the percentage for all participants is 89%. And for transgender people, it's 100%. Okay. About the quality of life, 43.5% of the participants say they're neither poor or no good. Okay. And on the other hand, 56.5% feel the quality of life is good or very good, especially if you look at the people aged more than 50, the percentage is much higher, which is 76.9%. However, I forgot to mention the number of the age 50 or older is only 15. So the percentage for elderly people is not much in this study. Okay, let's move to the discussion of this presentation. Well, as you can see, the respondents, the top 3 most checked event, negative event. Okay, the first one is a friendship ended, which is 56%. The second one is I was verbally insulted, yelled at, criticized, used derogatory terms. The third one is I experienced an unfriendly or hostile environment. Okay, so as you know, Taiwan became the first country in Asia to provide lesbian and gay people right to marriage. But still, some of the people in Taiwan disagree with the same-sex legislation and declare they have their own right to say unfriendly words or show their negative emotion feeding to the same-sex law or people with gender diversity. Another discussion is about the elderly people. The older we get, the happier we were is applicable to the LGBT population in Taiwan. The older adults show the low percentage across negative events. Also, the resilience level of the adult age 50 or older or transgender adult are particularly high. And those age 50 and older also reported the highest rate of good quality of life. A quarter of those age 50 and older, 20% report their relationship quality got better, and none of them report their relationship quality get worse. This result might be explained by social-emotional selectivity theory. As people age, goals shift to prioritize emotional well-being. Older adults will attend more often to emotional stimuli, and especially positive over negative material. The last discussion I like to bring up is about limitation and future study. As you can see, there are some homogeneity problem in sampling. So I will call the homogeneous sample, for example, like most of my participants are age under 50, or most of them are gay people, right? So this homogeneous sample limited the generalization of the all LGBT plus population in Taiwan. The second limitation is the self-reported questionnaire may reduce record bias. The third limitation is about the reactive to the question, and the fatigue to the length of the questionnaire should be concerned. As you know, the length of the questionnaire is more than 20 pages on online survey. So the fatigue should be a concern for this study. About the future direction, I have two comments. One, more dissemination for questionnaire. As I said earlier, the homogeneous sample is one of the limitations of this study. So it's very important to have a more dissemination for questionnaire to more heterosexual sample in the future study. The second direction is about inferential statistics. In this study so far, I just give you the descriptive statistic number for the preliminary result. In the future study, we would like to compare, for example, the lifespan older adult versus younger adult in negative events, resilience issues, or the social interactive issue. And also, it should be very important to compare the result of Taiwan with the result of the other country, and it will be very meaningful and wonderful to see the difference and the similarities of these issues among the LGBT people in different countries. That's all about my presentation, and thank you for your attention. And I leave my email address here. If you have any questions, any concern about my presentation, please send me email. I will be very, very willing to answer any question. Thank you very much. See you. Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you joining us for this symposium. I'll be presenting on behalf of my colleagues, Taryn Witten and Karen FREDRIKSEN-GOLDSEN, our paper called Reaching Out Around the Globe, a multifaceted, multi-level, multicultural approach to recruitment. Excuse me. So our project, about which you've heard a little bit, has always been more than a pilot project. We were also trying to nurture the development of a network of professionals who might not have the support in their own country or their own community for the work that they do. As such, we wanted to bring together colleagues and researchers from around the globe, itself a multi-stage process as described on this slide. Sort of our origins lie in a workshop that was hosted by Karen at the IAGG meetings in San Francisco in 2017. The workshop was on international perspectives on LGBT aging, and over 40 researchers attended from multiple countries who uniformly recounted this as a positive experience. And then those who participated in this workshop were also invited to contribute empirical papers to a special double issue of the International Journal of Aging and Human Development that Karen and I had been invited to guest edit. We also extended an invitation more broadly through our professional contacts and that of our colleagues, through a review of the literature and identifying other authors to whom we had not yet been introduced, word of mouth, and even social media. So the final 2 issues of this special compilation were published in 2019 and comprised 15 papers written by 47 authors representing 10 countries. Karen and I then invited these authors and others from the 2017 meeting to a Zoom meeting that we held in July 2020. We also extended a broader invitation to others to participate in what was going to be our initial discussion of the potential of a pilot global aging LGBT project. Since this first call, we've had well over a dozen subsequent calls, and each call, each Zoom has comprised 2 meetings, one at 8 in the morning, one at 7 at night here in Pacific Standard Time, to accommodate the wide variety of time zones of our collaborators from around the world. As you can imagine, there are myriad issues involved in challenges in reaching out and recruiting both participants and colleagues from around the world. Here on the left, a list of just some of those, culture kind of being primary. And culture here includes nationality, governments, laws, policies. And on the right, you see, I hope you can see, a recent graph from the Pew Research Company revealing summaries of some of what they found in a survey of 34 countries, tried to understand acceptance of homosexuality across these countries around the world. And acceptance ranged from a high of 94% in Sweden to 7% in Nigeria. So these varying acceptance rates are themselves profound, and as you can imagine, influenced by a host of other factors, not the least of which include religion, politics, and as you might expect, those on the political right were less accepting than those on the left. Wealth, and wealthier countries with stronger economies tended to be more accepting, as well as a range of other factors. Language is both included and separate as an issue to consider here. Many languages, for example, do not have terms that describe same-sex identities, or the terms that are available are themselves clinical and/or pejorative. And using only English words to describe sexuality or gender identity can kind of reinforce an idea that queerness is itself a Western concept. And all these issues kind of play out when we're recruiting across these different cultural settings. The stigma, the legality of same-sex behaviors, whether and what terms might be used to accurately and meaningfully describe the sample we are hoping to recruit. And to make things even more complex, these terms necessarily vary by age and by cohort. The example of queer is often used, a term that's preferred by younger persons and often eschewed by older persons. So we chose to include LGBT+ as our label, or sometimes LGBTQITS, representing lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and two-spirit. And in the verbiage we use, we also include non-binary, sexual, and gender diverse. In our introductions, we talk about the diversity of populations, including bisexuality, sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. We refer to our study as the Global Pride Study. In the aggregate, we're hoping these terms, this way of framing, have an intentional and broad and inclusive reach. And given that this is an unfunded pilot project, our primary source of data derives from online surveys. Internet-based surveys are probably most economical, have, I bet, the farthest reach with significant confidentiality and privacy. But we also recognize the restrictions that are brought about by computer and internet access. And as such, paper surveys were also made available, mailed directly from participants in the language of their country to the host university, the University of Washington, where data were entered. Excuse me. We created a website, screenshot is shown here, for the Global Pride Study, hosted at the University of Washington and the Goldsen Institute. The website offers a variety of options, including a drop-down list of our team. You see the second from the right there, which now comprises 50 collaborators. And in that menu include biographical statements for each and contacts for the principal investigators and the project itself. There's also a separate form by which interested participants and researchers could contact the project office. A link to the survey itself is available on this document, on this website, and a drop-down menu highlights the countries that are participating, which are 19 in this pilot project. Clicking on the country opens up a homepage for the country described in the language or languages of the country. And clicking on that embedded survey link brings you to the survey in at least one of the languages of the country, as well as a statement in that language of ethical standards and approvals. Under the Outreach tab, a list of countries that are participating, as you see here in the pilot project, is revealed. Clicking on any of these brings the site visitors to a variety of flyers, postcards, social media text, and other graphics that are shareable. Again, all in the languages of the participating country and organized by these countries. This slide highlights the examples of the postcards, for example, that have been developed for the two countries whose preliminary data are described in this symposium, as well as the US version, which appears here in the middle. But please, just as a reminder that these are also available for the 16 other participating countries in our pilot project. And from left to right, these represent Argentina, the US, and Taiwan. Our approach to both outreach and recruitment is really network-based. We build upon the networks, professional and personal, of the well-placed collaborators of our study in each of the pilot project countries, as well as existing networks of sexual and gender diverse groups, organizations, and agencies within and across countries, including those groups whose efforts are to provide services to sexual and gender diverse adults. So our project sample then is built upon this multi-layered, multifaceted outreach program. Together, project collaborators and staff developed outreach and recruitment materials that can be distributed centrally by the project staff, but also by individual collaborators and accessed here, as I've just shared. That is, these flyers, postcards, emails, and other media may be distributed across individual networks, across community and agency networks, and many iterations of the same, as you can imagine. We also used international platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we offered a type of in-service training for any of our collaborators who might benefit from learning a little bit more about the use of Facebook technology in particular. Data were gathered centrally at the University of Washington, but summaries of the data were shared weekly with participating research over the 3-month pilot project period, which ended at the end of May. We developed a tracking sheet to assist collaborators to track their outreach efforts in such that we might include it in corresponding use of the survey completion, such that we might gauge how successful our outreach efforts were by bumps in the number of respondents who had completed the surveys. This slide highlights some of the outreach recruitment approaches taken by various countries, particularly the two whose efforts are being highlighted in this symposium, showing that country-specific strategies are imperative, notwithstanding kind of the global efforts undertaken. Facebook, for example, was more highly used and successful in the US, but LGBT group social network pages and other social media pages, as well as contact with stakeholders, not only used in the US, but especially in Taiwan, and were particularly successful there. More successful in Argentina was direct outreach through WhatsApp by the key collaborators to other researchers in the country who could then distribute this information and these links to the survey to their followers or support group members or others who are part of their social media. It was important to establish that trust, and that link of trust was seen as successful for the kind of expansion of our message and beyond. So if we think of further considerations, it's important to recognize that not all collaborators have existing networks, sometimes due to the kind of their newness in the field, and sometimes due even to safety considerations, given the nature of this research in particular countries. So in response, we also developed a social media campaign, primarily on Facebook and Google, that could be operated centrally, but distributed or have a presence across these different national settings. So next steps then for us include a further assessment of the results and successes of these various outreach and recruitment strategies, examining differences by country, some of which we've also revealed, but as well as by demographic groups. How resonant were they, for example, for people of different ages, different gender identities? And building upon these learnings, we could develop the full global project, which we hope to initiate kind of project development in the autumn. So that's a snapshot of our outreach and recruitment efforts, and I thank you for listening, for participating here. I've put my email and Karen's email here on this screen, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, comments, or wish to participate. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present at this symposium. The title of my presentation is Sexuality and Gender Research Across the Life Course in Argentina, a South American Perspective. A result of almost 2 years of hard work with the Global Pride Study team, a global project on the aging, health, and service needs of sexual and gender minorities with colleagues from different countries. Our initial goal was getting the survey completed by 100 LGBTQ Argentinians aged 18 or older. We received the outreach materials to spread the word by social media, but when we started the diffusion, we had some difficulties that I would like to tell you about. First, we shared those materials through Facebook and Instagram official accounts of the Tercera Edad y Vejez Chair from the Faculty of Psychology of the University of Buenos Aires with poor engagement. That's when we decided to send the link to the survey. by email to LGBTQ participants from a previous research, and we realized they mistrust the survey, especially questions related to level of income. As a result, they would quit. We understood we needed to build a trust basis, so we asked permission to send the survey by WhatsApp to some known Argentinian researchers of ours, so they could send the survey to LGBTQ contacts that they knew. From then on, we got more surveys completed and we could get closer to the objectives for this phase of the study. When we started the diffusion by WhatsApp, we only had 24 surveys completed. A week later, the number of surveys was 53. 2 weeks later, we had 82 surveys completed, and by the third week, with 111 surveys completed, we reached the initial goal. So, it turns out that sending the survey by WhatsApp by known researchers with LGBTQ contacts was the most successful way to get the survey completed in our country. Let's go straight to key findings. As you can see, both older and younger participants had received a COVID-19 vaccine. About 29% of adults aged 55 and older reported that they had been infected with COVID-19, while more than 70% of those aged 18 to 54 had. About 60% of adults aged 55 and older and 50% of adults aged 18 to 54 reported that someone close to them had died of COVID-19. Going to the next slide, we can see about 15% of participants reported that since the coronavirus pandemic began, the quality of their relationships with people in their household got worse, while 17% reported it got better. Of those aged 55 and older, 19% reported that the quality of the relationship got worse, and only 10% reported it got better. In terms of the number of people they can count on for practical help, like someone to pick up groceries, talk to about the problem, or provide you or a household member with care, 21% said 0 to 1 people, and 79% said 2 or more people. Those findings were similar between age groups. About 26% reported they feel left out fairly often or very often. The rate for those aged 55 and older is 18%. This table shows the top 5 most checked events to the question, in your lifetime, have you experienced any of the following negative events? 59.1% answered, I was verbally insulted, yelled at, criticized, or used derogatory terms on. 47.7% answered, a friendship ended. 27.3% answered that I was discriminated against in the workplace. 36.4% answered, I was forced to try to be someone I am not. 36.4% answered, I experienced an unfriendly or hostile environment. To the question, in your lifetime, have you ever seriously thought about killing or harming yourself? 45.2% answered yes. There are significant differences by age group to the question, in your lifetime, have you ever seriously thought about killing or harming yourself? For those aged 55 and older, 22.7% and 70% for those aged 18 to 54. Despite difficulties during the pandemic, the majority of older and younger participants showed resilience and good quality of life. Upon request, please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with each of the following. Overall, I tend to recover quickly after difficult times. 73.2% agree. I have learned some positive things about myself during difficult times. 92.7% agree. I found greater meaning in life. 72.5% agree. I now feel more in touch with people. 70.7% agree. I found new ways to connect socially. 78.9% agree. I learned how to reach out and help others. 75% agree. I learned to stand up for my personal rights. 82.9% agree. And I am now more appreciative of things that I had taken for granted. 87.5% agree. Well, we've come this far. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello. Hello, thank you for watching our presentation. We are very excited about the Global Pride Project, and I appreciate all of the presenters today. And now we want to open it for questions. My name is Karen FREDRIKSEN-GOLDSEN. I'm the PI and one of the collaborators in this exciting global project.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian DeVries. I'm a co-PI collaborator as well, and I hope you enjoyed the presentations. We appreciate our colleagues being a part of this and are excited about this project, reaching around the globe to better understand the lives of sexual and gender diverse adults with a focus on older adults.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Now we have a couple of questions, and one question is, what have been the primary benefits of this kind of global project? So I'll take that question. There's been many, I think really many benefits from this project. It's been wonderful finding collaborators and being able to work with people across the globe. We are, as was mentioned in our presentation, we are across every world region, and we have 2 or 3 collaborators in each of those. And many people have shared with us how important both our network is, as well as the project, the research project itself, the pilot project, how important it's been as a way for researchers with interests in sexuality and gender to be able to connect and to be able to know and share information with other researchers that are interested in this area. Many parts of the world, some parts of the world have even seen different departments and sexuality and gender initiatives within their universities, close, or resources have been shifted. And again, many people are working rather, alone or oftentimes in isolation trying to move these projects forward. So that's been one important benefit of this entire project. has been an opportunity to be able to find ways and connect with other researchers. In addition to the important knowledge I think this project provides, it's also really a networking tool. And I know we provided our contact information, but we would encourage any of you that would like to join the network to contact either myself or Brian or the project itself, Global Pride at uw.edu, and let us know. Brian, there's another question here. And what would you say are some of the challenges that we've encountered doing a project like this?
Yeah, it's a great question. You can imagine that there are many, but I just want to echo in response to that what Karen had said, that working through these challenges kind of helped create this community that our collaborators and we have come to value. But some of the challenges that in a surprising way, like even the terms, for example, that are used to describe sexual and gender minority or diverse older adults vary really radically from country to country, from region to region. And so in order to both have questions and have opportunities for individuals to identify themselves in that kind of culturally sensitive way that doesn't privilege a sort of Western perspective, I think was kind of an immediate challenge. We would ask pretty readily here in North America, we have to think twice or rephrase in the way in which we ask elsewhere. We've also heard, I think, in some of the presentations, the extent to which even how we reach out to prospective participants varies really dramatically from setting to setting. And so that too was a challenge we had to confront and clearly have addressed in pretty successful ways, I think. And so, there are many that are methodological, that are kind of content specific, and that have to do with outreach and sampling.
Thank you, Brian. The one last question here is, what are our next steps for moving forward? Again, this project would not be possible if it wasn't for the wonderful collaborators working on this project across the globe. And I think in my presentation, I showed the very diverse group and number of researchers that are really making this possible. And I think that, first of all, is we're going to continue working. The group has been very, very committed to the project, or wouldn't have been possible without that. And we've continued to learn so much. So our next steps, I think, really are, one, cleaning all the data we have, and that's very important, but also really considering and working together to be able to identify those very important lessons learned from this project, which I think can really benefit the entire field and, within each region, but across regions and across countries. So we'll continue to work together to be able to identify the lessons learned. And then our next step will be to really dissemination, sharing this with the larger, broader communities within and across countries and regions. So that's also a very important next step with this project. And we will continue that. We'll also continue to build our network to give other researchers opportunities to join, and then to really share what people have learned within this project, but also within individuals and researchers and scholars' own research. So we really want to provide additional opportunities to share this information and to connect with scholars, researchers, community people who are involved working directly within communities, to really be able to further the project, but also to get those lessons learned and the material out into the communities. I just again want to thank all the participants, all the collaborators, and I want to just let you know, if you need any additional information or you have any questions that we can't address now, please feel free to reach out to us. Again, our email address is globalpride, GLOBALPRIDE at uw.edu, globalpride at uw.edu. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Karen.